All content provided on this podcast is for informational, entertainment, or educational purposes only and should not be considered professional advice of any kind, including but not limited to legal, medical, financial, exercise, or health related. Listeners are encouraged to consult with a qualified professional before making any decisions based on the content of this podcast. Any reliance you place on such information is strictly at your own risk. By listening to this podcast, you agree that the hosts, guests, producers, and all affiliated parties are not liable for any damages, losses, or injuries resulting from the use or misuse of the information provided. This podcast may occasionally feature discussions on sensitive topics. Listener discretion is advised.
Everybody always talks about meal prep, John, but does anybody ever really talk about the SHTF prep? You know what that means, right?
It hits the fan.
Right.
Welcome to Faith, Freedom, and Fitness. Introducing your host, John Turk, a former police officer, fitness cover model, and the real-life inspiration behind Subzero from Mortal Kombat. He is joined by Michael Wayne Foster, a former school teacher, actor, and model who's graced the covers of over 800 romance novels. Get ready for the F3 podcast.
All right, John, I got to tell you, man, I got to tell you a quick story. So when I first met my wife, that's back when I owned my supplement store in West Hollywood, and I had like cases and cases and cases of samples. I'm talking like protein powders, fat burners, weight gainers, everything. And I'd have all your typical, I call them the buzzards. The buzzards would come in and they'd be like, hey, can I get some samples? They never buy anything, but they just came in and just took all my samples. In West Hollywood, everybody's shredded. So everybody's going for like the fat burners, protein powders, creatine formulas, all that stuff. But nobody ever touched the weight gainers, ever. So I start dating Karina, and she comes in one time, and she's like, what are all these? I'm like, samples. And she's like, what are these? And I'm like, they're weight gainers, and nobody's touching them. And she's like, no one ever wants them? I'm like, nobody in this town wants weight gainers. She's like, can I have them? And I was like, okay, you can have them. And she starts like taking all these boxes and boxes. I'm talking like, imagine how much cocaine Tony Montana had. Okay. That's like how many supplements I had going on there. And she's taking all this stuff. And I'm like, I got to ask, what do you want weight gainers for? And she's like, think about it. If the SHTF situation happens, I'm like, yeah. She goes, all I need is water. These things are loaded with calories, proteins, fats, carbs, all the macros, vitamins, minerals. And I was like, oh, and it gave me an idea. I was like, man, that's something I would. Of course, I never had the investors, but I was like, I would love to start a doomsday kind of apocalypse, fuel, because that's the thing that no one ever thinks about. People think that like, well, I'm going to get some extra canned goods on the shelf and this, that, and the other thing. But, I think that we learned from when COVID hit and we saw that the shelves at the grocery stores were bare. The two things that are going to be completely non-existent in a terrible scenario is going to be calories for sure. And the other one is going to be medical assistance, any kind of, if you've got any kind of medical issues, sorry about your luck. So actually, if you truly are preparing for the worst and you're just stocking your shelves like beef stew and salty stuff and all that, you're not going to be doing so hot when your health takes a turn for the worst. So that's when health would come in the most. And I just got to tell you, before I throw this back to you, some good friends of mine, Mark and Krista, have the Practical Prepping podcast, and I listen to them, and they actually mentioned us last week on us being in health and fitness, and that was kind of the inspiration for wanting to talk about this, because again, I just think it's something that's completely overlooked on not just storing food, but storing the right kind of food. So what say you, John?
Well, I think Karina has a good point there with the protein drinks. But I think you also have to have obviously some fiber, which I'm sure she was thinking about. But, for me, I look at like there's several kinds of like protein sources I think are really important. And I believe that you can't go wrong with canned sardines, canned tuna, and, chicken breast. And that's going to be able to stay for a long time in there. And, you obviously want to try to get the peel off lids, but I would start with basically making sure you have a really good stock supply of protein. And you got to have fish in there. You got to have, chicken and tuna. They're real easy. They taste good. You can add other stuff too. Like some people like, eggs. But if you got to pack a bag and run and you got nowhere to cook it, the canned ones are going to be really good. And, you can still get things with like legumes and beans and stuff like that. So you got to think protein right off the bat, because I do think it's like probably the most important thing. And then also you got to think of your immune system. So I would try to have some citrus on hand, and they got these little packets. They're like lemon and lime, and they're powder, and you could just take one of those a day. Like, one of the biggest problems, why they call the English limeys, right?
Yeah, I do, but go ahead and say it.
So what happened was, back in the day, really early times, when they would be on the boat for a long time, whenever they would get caught by the, opposing, battlefield, they would always have limes in their pocket. And the reason why is, when these guys were out at sea for a long time, they never had fruits. And what would happen is they'd get what's called scurvy, and it causes the legs to bow. And it's basically like an imbalance where you don't get vitamin C. So the bones kind of get like trash, as well as a lot of your connective tissue. So it's really important. Vitamin C is vital. So it's really important to have, like, you can get it it's called like real lemon, real lime. And you can get it at like Walmart has it. It comes in a box and they're like little packets. I think that's a key. The other thing too is you want to make sure that the biggest thing for your immune system, because let's face it, when that apocalypse does happen, you got to really look out for your immune system and your proteins, which we just discussed. But you need something with a lot of vitamin A in it, and something with a lot of vitamin D. And so that's where the fish comes into play, which is why I'm kind of tying back to that. Sardines and things like that are really high in vitamin D, and also vitamin A, which is huge for the immune system. So you need to pick foods that are going to be wholesome foods, and things that will really not only give you proteins to help your body stay strong and build, but also build that immune system. And then obviously you can get simple things like collagen. You can like buy like these collagen snacks, and they come in like little paper packets, and you can eat those too. And then this will help your tissue. And then you take vitamin C with it. I mean, you got everything you need right there. And then obviously the next thing is water. So if you can get a good water supply, which is, bleach drops will help you sterilize most water. And, you have water and your main nutrients, you're good to go. You can last a long time, and you wouldn't need a big bag to carry that stuff. That's the great thing about all the items I just named. Yeah. And, people talk about, well, what about fiber? What are you going to get that in your fish with the skin, with the sardines? I like the sardines are the best. I eat them every day. Julia, I've got her to eat them, and she sticks them in the air fryer. But, I eat those in my rice. I eat them in everything. They're really good for you, especially the ones with the skin and the little bones in them.
Yep.
And also, there's other things you can do, but if you got to pack a bag and have it to run, and you really don't know what to use, that's the best bet. So
there's a lot to unpack there, and I do agree with you on sardines. As a matter of fact, when you came that last time, I stocked all my shelves of sardines. I don't eat them as much as you do. I should, but I've got them here. And I always remember my grandfather. I always remember he'd be outside, working around the garden, and he'd come in and he'd always have like sardines and crackers. I'm not saying that's exactly the best health food in the world, but that was his jam, man. He loved it. But I want to unpack. I'm glad you brought up vitamin A and vitamin D, and obviously we know vitamin C is so vital for the immune system. But I was going to think about the three macros: protein, fats, and carbs. And you've really put a high emphasis on protein right now. And I guess the reason I wanted to break that down is, in a situation where calories are vital because there's going to be so few of them, do you think that out of the three macros, protein would be the most important? Because obviously it does what protein does with, maintaining muscle tissue, all that stuff, but it can also be broken down through the process of gluconeogenesis into carbohydrates if fuel is needed. Is that why so instead of having carbs that are just doing nothing but fuel, have protein, and then that can turn into fuel in situations like that.
Exactly. And then if you're like someone with any kind of glucose intolerance or like diabetic, that food's going to be great for you too, because it doesn't do insulin spikes. And so in any way you look at that kind of a diet with the fish and chicken and, tuna, and if you could find even like jerky sticks, you get a good like deer steak, jerky stick. All those things are really, really helpful when it comes down to it, because most of us, let's face it, we're not going to be able to drag a big suitcase with us if we got to run out of the house real quick. But I got a bag just with those things in it that I told you about. And it's real simple. It's basically 3 things, but you take those 3 things, and then you can even add, like, if you want to get like more carbs in you, like you're saying, you want to pick something orange, because that's what's got your vitamin A. But vitamin A is going to be another thing you got to really look out for. And, sardines, like I said, has it, but you want more of the vitamin A. Vitamin D, there's really not much you can do. I would actually pack vitamin D in my bug out bag. I mean, unless you're going to go somewhere where you're sunny and your skin's going to produce it. But if you're in a cold climate and you got to run out, those things are so important for your immune system. D, A, and C. I mean, they're huge. And then obviously zinc is a big part of it. But zinc, you don't need much. You can get by with a little bit of zinc and be fine. But there's other foods that have zinc in it, and it's a pretty plentiful nutrient. It's not something you got to really worry too much about.
Yep. The going back to that's agree with all that. The water that you were talking about, again, going back to my friends Mark and Krista, their Practical Prepping podcast, I would refer anyone. I don't remember what episode it is. Maybe I could find that and put it in the show notes. But they did multiple episodes on how important water is. And going back to my crazy Karina, my doomsday prepper wife, I remember when I first met her, her little apartment in Santa Monica. Half of that, I mean, under every single bed and every closet, she had bottles and bottles of water. And her thing is that, like, California is a desert. There's not going to be like, here we are, and I'm in Alabama now. There's water everywhere, rivers, creeks, lakes, you name it. Same in Michigan, where you're from, in Illinois, all those areas. I wouldn't be too worried
where I'm
about.
at now, you're right.
Where you're at now, big trouble, because it's all salt water. So, so that's the thing, but they go through and talk about, like if it's brown, how to run it through filtration and how to add, like you were talking about the bleach. And I know there's all sorts of different kits that you can have where you've got like that life straw or whatever it is.
Yeah, I got one. I got 2. I got probably 4 of those. Yeah. And then I also have a shaker that has a filter in it. Mm-hmm. And then I also have this thing, it's a pump and it's pressurized. And you put water in it, and then you push it through, and it pressurizes it and filters it and gets out of salt and everything. So it's you don't get much water in each pump, but it's enough to like help you survive, and it gets out all the impurities. And then what I would do also is I don't have it off the top of my head. It's in my bag, but once you filter it, you still want to make sure it's safe, and you put a few drops of bleach in the water.
Yeah.
And, and make sure you don't get the bleach that's no splash, the gel kind, you want to get regular bleach. So that's the main thing I would think. And, you keep a little bleach dropper inside your bug out bag, because you don't need much to sterilize the water. So I just get one of my old like droppers I got for like minerals. I had this multi-mineral thing. And then once it's gone, I keep it and I fill it with bleach. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And I mean, I don't want to throw too many supplements at everybody now, but one of the things that I always try to keep around just in case was activated charcoal. I used to get that from like, the bulk supplements and all that stuff. I'd always keep that around as well, because that's really good for filtration too. Mm-hmm. So there is that.
Also, if you get a nice, good bug in your gut, you can always use that to help bind it and get rid of it. So
that is absolutely correct. What I was going to say too is we were talking about all the stuff that's helpful in my the little doomsday formula that I wanted to create. 2 things that I was going to add in that I thought that were paramount for maintaining optimal health were probiotics and enzymes. Because I was thought, I mean, we all, well, at least you and I know, hopefully everybody else will as well, that, when you get sick 9 times out of 10, it's coming through the gut, right? It's something that went in through your mouth or through your nose. So keeping your gut flora, completely on high alert would be good. Because like I said, that was the thing that I saw it with COVID. It was like food is gone. So we can get into like calorically dense foods in a second. But the thing is when everybody's sick, there's not going to be any medical attention. Maybe this goes back. You probably remember this. But do you remember in 1983, one of the top rated shows of all time came on, I believe it was ABC, was The Day After. Do you remember that?
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
It was, everyone's going to be like, listen to these boomers. Let me tell you something. In the height of the Cold War 80s, when this movie came out, it was about a full-on nuclear war between the United States and Russia. It starts off small town Nebraska, out there where the silos are. Everything's going fine. And then that's part one. And then part two, the war happens and it just, wastes everything. And then part three is the aftermath.
Yeah.
And it just showed all of the people that had burns and radiation sickness and all this stuff going to the hospitals. And Jason Robards, remember him? He played one of the doctors, and he was just completely inundated with people. It was so the thing is, if things go sideways, there's not going to be medical attention. So I agree with you on all the antioxidants, but one of the things that I always like to keep handy in the house is a jar of probiotics, and always have digestive enzymes around too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And if you get dig a little deeper in that, with your wife being a doctor, it's good to find really what I call multi-use antibiotics and have those on hand. And I would have some kind of dewormer because you could pick up a worm in the water. So like ivermectin or fenbendazole, which would help you with other things as well. And some antiviral drugs, like there's one called Zovirex or acyclovir.
Mm-hmm.
All these things would be really helpful if you get, stuck in a bind or whatever. And there's like azithromycin is a basic antibiotic that works with a lot of things. You want to get an antibiotic for like overall, body functions, but you also want to get one for the gut. Like if you get a bacterial infection, something to that effect. There's one called Bactrim that's pretty good for like urinary tract infections. And then you got, worry about problems with your stomach, which you mentioned the probiotics, but there's certain bacteria that could get in your gut and cause problems. And then eventually you take too many antibiotics, you get problems from that. So a really good probiotic that you want to take is Saccharomyces boulardii. And it's known to help the gut tremendously with things like C. diff. That's horrible once you take too many antibiotics. So that's something I actually take every probably 4 to 6 months. Even if I don't have a problem, I take like a week course of it. And it's just really helpful to get your gut flora up. It's like we're really finding out it's like a super important probiotic. Let me see if I can find a picture of it and I can kind of put it up to the screen. I have it in my phone here. But yeah, there's a ton of stuff that we can go so deep into this thing, with all
absolutely.
Yeah, but I'm thinking more in the lines of, just people running out the door with a bag. Like I always think of, what I think of when I hear that, hey, running out is when I think of the Bible and I think of Lot when Moses or God said, go back, leave, and don't turn back and look. And then his wife did, and she was turned to stone. It's kind of the same thing, man. And then Jesus mentions it in Matthew 24, how, it's going to be horrible for those days. If a woman's pregnant, run to the hills, don't go back and get anything. It's almost sounding like the apocalypse, right? So the same thing applies. You got to have something you can grab real quick. I got my earthquake bag, right? And for me, it's like change of clothes, my toothbrush, some basic, foods, things that we just mentioned. But, for an earthquake, it's different than if, basically the world's ending and you got to survive for the next 6 months or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's
that's why I like Mark and Krista's podcast so much, because it's like there's no aliens, no zombies, no bunkers and all this. It's like this is for stuff like you were saying. Here's stuff that's going to happen. Like if it goes sideways, do I want it to be zombies? Oh yeah, especially if they're the slow ones. That would be. I mean, if you got to pick your apocalypse, that would be the one I'd want to go with. But
yeah.
The thing of it is what they talk about is stuff that's gonna happen. Is there going to be another earthquake in California where you live? Absolutely. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
is there going to be another hurricane season in Florida and the coastal regions? Yep. Are we going to have tornadoes here? Yep. Are they going to have blizzards in the upper Midwest? Yep. I mean, all that stuff is stuff that we need to prepare for. And one of the things too, I mean, you and I really want to focus on the nutrition. I don't want to start going down the road of talking about all the stuff that you need, but I will say one thing is that one thing that they do talk about quite a bit to have in there on top of what we just mentioned is a light. Always keep a flashlight or a light or something there as well. And you touched on this earlier. Let's get in really quick stuff that you might need to cook. So like you said, if you got a bunch of cans and they're not like the little pop tops like you're talking about with the sardines, you're going to need a can opener of some sort. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And then to be able to
Fire
cook
is always good. I would have if you can go to like a sporting goods store and get like a little butane stove.
Yep.
I mean, it's easy, it's safe. The canisters store really well for quite a long time. You can get those little flames too. You can light them up real easy, and the candle kind of lasts for a long time, kind of like with the warmers they do with underneath when you get a
buffet.
Buffet or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I know. Yep.
Yeah,
But the thing is like you said though, John, if we're talking about short term, okay, there's an earthquake, you got to have a couple of weeks. The butane, the propane, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've got extra. I always keep a few extra tanks of propane for my griddle and all that. But when we went and bought I needed a smoker last year, so I'm so bougie. I got 2 smokers, right? The one at the house here is one of those. It's called like a side loader. So it's like, imagine a smoker, and on the side is where you put the fuel in, and a fan turns on and it regulates the temperature. And it's one of those things like, if I was going to smoke a brisket, I just said it, I'd get back to beef sooner or later. If I'm smoking a brisket and I got to smoke it for 12 to 15 hours, it's like a set it and forget it thing. As long as there's charcoal or wood or whatever I'm putting in there, it's good to go. It totally regulates it.
Yeah.
But the one that we got for the lake, I purposely got with zero electronics. It's just a big old steel grill drum thing. What's got like the the exhaust port on the one side, and then it's got a firebox on it. So that's how we smoke the turkey, and it's all done by regulating like how much air you let in there, and that's how hot it gets. But I was just like, I'm going to smoke this turkey without electronics or anything like that, and I just basically put some charcoal in there and started a fire, and then just started throwing logs that I split from the property. There was oak, just throwing that in there nonstop, and that's how I cooked it. And I purposely got that for that reason. Like, is it convenient? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But if things go sideways and there's no fuel, no propane, no power, if I can find wood, I can cook.
Yeah.
And that's, the grill, you can do about anything.
Yeah, they got another thing called a rocket stove too. Are you familiar with the rocket stove?
I am not.
It's kind of like a camping thing. It's pretty much what you're describing. It's like you could burn like sticks and twigs and stuff in it and paper. So it's good for like long-term, like off-grid kind of things. And that's another thing you do if you don't have butane. It's just real portable. You get a real small portable one, fits right in your bag, and you just pull it out. And it's got like a front end loader with a grill, the grill part on top. So picture like, here's the front end loader where you throw all the twigs in, and here's they hit here, the fire starts, and then the heat goes up to where your grill is. So you just keep loading like, wood chips and whatever it is in that grill part, and it just will keep burning upwards and cooking whatever it is that you have on there. So wherever you're at, as long as you got matches, this rocket stove is pretty cool. So
I just got a vision from Back to the Future. Remember Doc Brown at the end? He comes out, I need fuel.
Yeah.
Remember? And he's throwing like cans of beer and
throws in the flux capacitor,
bananas, beer cans, all that stuff.
Yeah.
John, let me ask you this. So we talked about like how important it is to have the vitamins, the minerals, and I was going to say, when you were talking about all the antivirals and the antibiotics and all that stuff, did you know, and I did not know this, did you know you can get a lot of that stuff at pet stores, like fish feed and pet stores and all that?
Yeah, the antibiotics you can. And you know, just like ivermectin and that online at like veterinarian stores. Yeah. Because you get a different version of it, but it still works. It's the same one. It just doesn't come in like a pill like we would take as people. The horses, it's just a paste.
Well,
but it's the same drug.
For any bros that are listening now that may have reservations on having the horse paste, how many of you once had little bottles that said testosterone on it with a little dog or a horse or a cow from the 80s? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember that stuff was always circulating around and be like, oh, here's a bottle of testosterone and it's got a dog on it. Okay, that's
well, how about Equipoise was for horses and everybody was popping that, right?
Yep.
Equipoise, they had I think Winstrol V was for what animal? Pigs. Or no, Fineject, which is now they call it. So back in the day, it was called Fineject. It was for pigs, and now they call it
Trenbolone.
Yes, Tren.
Yeah. Tren. Yeah, I remember that. It was because it came in those pellets, and people would grind them up and put them in liquid and filter them out. And oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, so people have been using animal, drugs for a long time. I mean, they're organic animals. Animals are organic. It's the same thing we are. So they have similar systems, and it works the same way. So,
do you remember one of my favorite lines in Fight Club? Do you remember when he first meets Bob? He's like, Bob was a juicer. Bob had bitch tits. He's going on, and then it cuts to Meatloaf was playing Bob, and he's like, oh, I was a juicer. I was taking Wistrol, Dabinol. Oh, they give that to racehorses for Christ's sake.
Yeah, yeah.
I used that part. Every time that came on, I used to laugh. Oh, that was great. That was funny. Let me ask you this. Let's get into, we've talked about all that. Let's talk about calories now. What do you think are going to be, and you mentioned earlier the beans and all that, definitely beans, legumes. I know
Yeah.
whenever that stuff goes on sale, what I do is I go get it. It'll be, I've seen like that Goya. I've seen they've had all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
It'll be on sale for like clearance, like 49 cents a bag. So I just take it and I do the, the airtight seal, what do they call that? The vacuum seal stuff. I just vacuum seal all that and just put it away and forget I even have it.
Yeah.
But as far as calories go, what do you think are the most calorically dense? I'm not going to say nutrient dense, calorically dense foods that would be important in times of lack of calories?
Well, you want obviously something that has a lot of fat in it, because fat's 9 calories per gram, whereas protein and carbs are 4. So you want to look for foods that are, calorie dense like that. And, you're going to find that in nuts and seeds, and dried fruit is another one where you're going to get a lot of calorie dense foods. So you want to probably have a few things like that in there. And, it's also, you can also have like another great thing that you can pack away is, to have like legumes, like rices too, and grains and things like that. And so I think having something to cook those with, I think it's good to have like a deep skillet. It's like a multi-purpose deep skillet, and then our utensils. It's probably best to have like a really large spoon and a really large fork, so you can kind of stir things or get things out of the pot. Because either way, the large one will work with small pans, big pans. You're cooking, you need to use it. So if you're trying to minimize the amount of products or the amount of tools that you have in the bag, you got to look at things and say, okay, what would I get multi-usage out of?
Cast iron Dutch oven, John. That's where it's at.
Yeah.
That's the one. I got one of those out of the house. That thing's a beast. You can cook steaks in it, stews, you name it.
You could kill a bear with it.
and that's just it. Throw it at somebody.
Yeah. Did you ever see that video go around the internet where the old guy, the alligator comes walking up on his property, and he's got a skillet in his hand, metal skillet, he's cooking, and he goes, "Get out of here!" And he turns around, and the alligator opens his mouth like to try and scare him, and he whacks it on the top of the nose with and you could hear this thing just go conk, and you see the alligator just bolts and turns around and runs. And I'm like, man, that skillet must have hurt.
Yeah,
you get the
they're
good
so heavy.
Yeah.
And the thing is, cleaning them, they're so easy to clean. And here's the thing, as long as we're talking cast iron, here's the golden rule: never ever clean that with dish soap, ever. You know that, right?
Well,
oh my gosh, well, they talk about seasoning them. So it's like you want to cook in there with, I'm going to get Southern here, John. You cook in with, you put your oil in there, and you cook with, all your meats and whatnot, your oil. Yep. But when you use that dish soap, that seasoned cast iron that just tastes amazing, it's going to taste like dish soap. It gets in there. And because if you think about it, like a lot of like oil spills, Exxon Valdez, all that stuff, they're using Dawn to help clean up all the oil. So that's one of the things. When you put that in that cast iron, it just strips all that good oil that's been built up and preserved and seasoned, so it gets it out of there. So the best way to clean one of those, what I do, and I've got multiple cast irons, is while it's still hot, I'll spray some water in there, and it bubbles up, and it just kind of gets everything off. And I like using those. I got really thick wood spatulas. That's what I like to use, those wood spatulas. And I get all the gunk off it, and the water takes it off. Then when I'm done, I take a paper towel and I get in there and I wipe it off till it's clean. And then I just spray it when I'm done. I spray it with oil so it doesn't rust. But I will say, if you have a hard time getting up, like if there's any like burnt chunks or anything, the easiest thing to do is put a bunch of salt in there and just take your paper towel and just scrub it with salt. That gets all the gunk out with the paper towel. And then you just get it out, rinse it out, and then dry it and hit it with oil. That's what you do.
And
easiest thing in the world.
With the Dawn, though, I mean, you could use it as a multi-purpose cleaner. Just the fact that it has an emollient in it that helps break down oils and things like that. So it's probably another thing to have on hand that might be pretty good.
Oh, absolutely.
But like you said, not cleaning your skillet. You don't want to do that.
Just go with your cast iron. Karina's mom was here one time, and my cast iron skillet, I cook with it 80% of the time during the week. I mean, I cook everything in it. And she was like, she always tries to be helpful. And she's like, I'm going to help you clean. And I look over here and I see her starting to clean it. She pulls out some Dawn, and I was like, it was like in slow-mo. no, no. And she was like, what is it? You know, and I'm like, you can't know. I was just cleaning this for you. You know, I'm like, no,
Yeah,
do not clean that, whatever you do.
yeah.
And, but,
Yeah, the other thing too is it's always good to have a radio, just so you know, and I get a crankable radio that's it runs off solar or cranks,
mhm,
and it has a light on it, a radio
mhm,
on it,
yep,
and one of those. I got one in my car. I got one in my car that helps break windows. So like if I get stuck in water and I can't get out, you just hit the corner, it'll break the window.
yep, yep,
It's a good multi-purpose light slash, um, escape tool or whatever you want to call it. And then also a really good Swiss Army knife with a bunch of not only utensils on it, but other little tools that you can use.
yep,
So that's
absolutely.
another good one.
Well, I mean, we could get into a million different things that you
Hell,
need on that, but I will tell you this: the one thing that I'd recommend is, let's say you're in a scenario where, let's say we're shut down for a while. I'm talking months, and I mean,
uh-huh.
you and I both know that when you get out here in the country, people are it's not gonna be hit as hard as the cities, especially like the inner cities, like where we lived in Los Angeles. There's gonna be no supplies in there. We're in big trouble. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
talking about societal breakdown within a week. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
what is it? You're only, I forgot what the saying is, but it's something you're only is like civilized is your last meal, or like, once you get 3 meals, miss 3 meals, things are going to start to change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but that being said, if it is an extended period of time and you have the means to get animals, one thing that people think about, everyone's thinking you need a ton of ammunition, tons of all this, tons of guns. The one gun that I think would be invaluable and it's cheap is the 22. Like,
Yep.
so there it is. I made sure I got 22 pistol and rifles, and that's purposely because let's say things have gone sideways and here I am at my house and the only things around here is a squirrel. Am I going to pull out my AR-15 and put one of those rounds and it'll explode, So it's going to be just for,
I always think of Maggie when you say that squirrel word. Squirrel.
and then and the dogs, they go, the funny thing is the dogs, squirrel gets them, but out in California it was always lizard.
Yeah.
Say lizard and they would just be like,
squirrel does get the dog. I used to say that to my dog because he'd see a squirrel on the balcony, man, he'd go ballistic. He'd go, wanted to kill the squirrel. And you're right, out here I got lizards all over my back patio, and it's funny. And what they do is they go underneath the rug. You can eat lizards too if you had to. Everything falls off real easy, the tail.
right?
Start chowing down on those things.
Yeah,
but
that's
is the lizards will usually be where the water is because they need water and they always end up finding it. So it's another kind of key thing to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to finish up with what you said about the nuts. As far as nuts goes, in an SHTF situation, what do you think would be the best nut to go with? Pecan, walnut. My money's on walnut, but
I would say nuts, but I mean almond would be good because from what I remember, almonds will stay a lot longer than a walnut. And also you could probably carry more almonds than you can walnuts. Walnuts are pretty big, and almonds, same amount of calories in one almond as one walnut. So if you want to try and pack as much as you can in a small space, probably the almonds.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love walnuts way more than almonds, but probably almonds, I would say, for me at least.
Let me ask you this, and I don't know, and I'm sure people out there listening do, but I always like whenever, Kroger or out where you're at Ralph's or whatever, when they've got like protein bars and energy bars on sale, like, 25 cents or whatever, just in the big clearance bin, I can't help myself. I just grab them all. But I'm wondering, in a situation like that, because I've got like those Kind bars and, all that kind of stuff, just tons of it laying around. How long do you think that really would how long would you really be able to eat that?
A Kind bar or one of those
Any
bars?
any of those bars, any kind of protein bar like that. Like how long, a sealed protein bar?
Yeah.
How long do you think it really would last?
I'm sure they last. Well, if you look at a lot of them, the expiration date's like a year, right? And a lot of them will last beyond that. They just can't have it on the shelf that long. Too, is what people don't realize is, they tell you antibiotics only a year and then you got to get rid of it. That's bullshit. The military keeps their antibiotics for 6 to 7 years. because they can't afford to keep throwing them out. And they did a study on it, and they said they last like right around 6-7 years. You'll still be able to use them. So
Isn't it like medicine? What it does is, doesn't it? It's not that it goes rancid. It's just that as you get past the shelf life, the milligrams decrease, like the potency decreases. Is that what it is?
A little bit, not as much as you think, though. Certain ones maybe degrade a little faster than others, but from what I'm understanding is through the military that they keep a lot of their antibiotics and things like that for a long time, especially if it's a chemical makeup, not like a antibiotic is like, basically a bacteria in there that you're using to help fight, and it's organic. But if you got like psychological drugs and a lot of those other drugs that are chemically based, they'll last a long time. And chemical's not going to break down. I mean, you get some of the things on a periodic table and last forever. So, I mean, your antibiotics are the only ones you got to be concerned about. But even then, if it's 2 years expired, what's your choice? It's not going to hurt you. In my belief, it's not going to hurt you. I mean, you could look it up, but the most thing that it would probably do is you got antibiotics. Regardless, you can have a allergic reaction, so you got to be careful. A lot of people have issues with them. Now, does it? I don't know if they break down and cause more allergies. That's something that most people would have to probably do a little research on. But I mean, if you've had an antibiotic and it's old and you got an infection and you're out in the middle of nowhere, what's your chances? I mean, I'd take the chance, and for me, at least, I would take it before I would let my leg fall off or whatever.
Right.
Especially if it's one, you haven't had a reaction to before. So my belief is the worst case scenario is it's not going to be as effective, but it'll still have some effect to it, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah. The military will use them for a long time. I just saw a show on that. They say 2 to 3 years on here, but I'm sure they last longer than that because the military keeps them up to 6-7 years.
I'm assuming a lot of those big giant the aircraft carriers and the destroyers and all that stuff that are out to sea. I mean, I know they bring on new supplies when they come in, but
and think about this: if you're in the military, the government, and you got all these antibiotics and they only last a year, do you know how much money that is? So the military is keeping them longer because they can't afford to keep throwing out all these antibiotics and replacing them every year. So the thing is they really looked into it and found, okay, we can keep them up to 6-7 years, from what I remember, and they'll be good, because to replace antibiotics with, millions of soldiers is going to be a huge, huge amount of money.
Oh my gosh.
And they're not going to be doing that. So military is a good example when you want to really see what's what in the world, because, they run all the tests, they do all the things, because soldiers going to battle, they could be in there for a long time. Things sitting on the shelves, you can't be replacing them. Hey, how long can we use this stuff, right? So they're always a good starting point to determine, well, how long can we use this for, or what good is this for? Always turn to the military because they know, they've done all the studies on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, to recap, let's take a look at it then. So having your vitamin C, A, and D is going to be important. As you said,
your vitamin A, I forgot to mention, you can always, people are like, well, what can I get that's orange that'll keep? Because it's mostly vegetables. You can always get dried vegetables. You can take carrots and you can actually,
them.
You can dehydrate them, right? And you could store them and store them that way. And that way you got your
vacuum sealing,
sweet potatoes. I mean, all these things. And, sweet potatoes, I started eating them a lot. I told you this a while ago. And they increased my vision by 2 prescriptions. So my eyes got better. I thought they were getting worse. And I went, and the lady says, no, man, your eyes aren't getting worse. They're getting better. So that vitamin A was great for my eyes. And
it's crazy. I was listening to Rogan today, and he was talking about taking a supplement. He was talking about lutein and another supplement that he was taking as well, and then also doing red light therapy. He said with that happening, he's saying exactly what you said. His vision got better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so
I need to look into that, man, because now you got that whole thing. Now when I look at anything, it's like, oh boy, you know what I'm talking about. Oh,
yes,
no bueno.
Yes,
yep.
I do.
They're the readers. Yeah. Busting out the readers. Oh man.
Yeah.
I'm too proud now. I still won't do it. I got a couple pairs around here, but I hate busting them out, man. I'm just like, dang.
Yeah.
And then,
I have to, because I start doing this, and next thing you know, my eyebrows and my whole muscles around my eye hurt from squinting, you know.
I know. And I got Maggie saying now, she's like, Dad, is that because you're old? And I'm like, yeah.
Oh, she said that?
Well, yeah, because I said one time, she's like, why are your Daddy, why do you have to put glasses on? I was like, well, Daddy's getting older. So now when she'll ask me, you know how they ask the same question over and over, she's like, Daddy, do you wear glasses because you're old? Yeah, I guess so. But
Kids.
yeah, but no, I love the sardines, and John is right. They really are good. Like people think sardines and they immediately go to like anchovies or something like that. It's you know, they're not like that at all. They're actually really good.
Yeah. If I had to bring one food with me and I could only bring one food, it'd be sardines.
Yeah.
That's what I would bring. If I had to grab one thing from my cabinet and run, I would grab those.
Yep. Especially are they packed in oil or water?
Yeah, you get ones packed in oil, packed in water, whatever you want to get. I keep the ones in water because I don't have to. I mean, I do have in storage in my shed. I have the oil. The only reason I don't really like to use the oil is oil tends to go rancid a little faster than, let's say, the water or whatever.
Yeah.
I just know that the longer oils sit, the more rancid they get. So I don't know over time if, even though it's sealed in that can, what would happen to the oils in it. Water is water, and you know, your food's food. But I mean, if the food isn't going bad, is the oil going bad? Who knows? You know, I don't know if I got to look into that. You just kind of made me think. Maybe I'm overreacting with the oil. But,
well, I mean, it would obviously be better because in a situation like that, that's more calories. But I totally agree with you, especially if it's packed in like an olive oil situation. You know, it's like that could go rancid. So you probably are safer with that. But we might have to do a deep dive into that. Or better yet, I'll set my buddy Mark onto that. I'll be like, hey, when you do your practical prepping podcast, do me a favor, do the research on oil or water packed fish. But like I said, I do know that you'll get more calories out of the oil.
Yeah.
The legumes, the beans, all that stuff, dry storage. And you know what I mean? If you're listening to this and you're taking this seriously, which John and I both do, a tool that would be invalid would be the vacuum sealer. That thing comes in handy. I've even taken those protein bars and even though they're already in packets, even vacuum sealed on top of that too, you know, just to.
Yeah. You know, you can get dried onions from Costco too. They have those big tubs of dried onions. I actually buy those all the time. I cook with them and they're really good. So
what?
If you go to Costco, they got dried onions and like little pieces that you just, I don't try to shake them out. It's too hard because they're pretty big. But I cook all my steak in it. I cook my chicken in it. It's phenomenal. And when you cook it in an air fryer, so I'll take my meat and I'll put it in the air fryer. And then right before I turn it on, I douse it in the onions and I put granulated garlic on it with salt. Mike, man, I'm telling you, the onions come out caramelized. They're phenomenal. And I actually leftover onions in the bottom. They're so good. I take them out with a spoon and I eat them. I won't let anything go to waste on them.
Is this like in the seasonings aisle, like where the granulated garlic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Seasoning
I know.
aisle. I got some here if you want me to show you the jar and what they look like.
I'm definitely going to get some because I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
So that's a thought too, because you can carry that with you anywhere. Pour those onions, and onions are great for your immune system too. Your blood. I mean, so many things. I would see if you can get dried, dehydrated like carrots, sweet potato, onions. Obviously, we just talked about. I mean, so good, dude. You know, and you know what also would be pretty good is like a little bottle of vinegar.
Oh yeah.
I mean, vinegar is another thing that you can cook with. You can do so many things with.
Clean.
And it would help your stomach. It's like, you know, a really good probiotic type thing or prebiotic type thing.
Was it the apple cider vinegar with mother, you know, that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I will say my 2 cents on this is if you're going to get a weight gainer, and I'm not going to give any plugs out there to different companies, but I will say there are some out there that are whole food weight gainers.
Yeah.
And those are the ones like I've seen a couple of them that'll have like they will have sweet potato, brown rice for the carbohydrates rather than maltodextrin. And they will have you know, chicken, salmon, different beef, different proteins they put in there as well that are coming from whole foods. I would probably say though that any animal-based protein would probably go bad a lot faster than a plant-based protein.
Yeah.
That was the one thing. I mean, in plant-based proteins, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. I think they suck. You know, there's only one I've ever tried that was a brown rice protein that I was like, okay, that's not bad. But the majority of them, they're gritty. The flavor's just ugh. You know, I mean, compared to like,
the other powdered thing you can get too is like goat milk powder instead of regular powdered milk, because powdered milk and dairy is just kind of hard on the gut, but goat's milk isn't. You know, you don't have to worry about the whole lactose thing. Most people can tolerate it pretty well, but you know, that's something you might want to think about. You know, to add another twist to it, dried goat milk. So you got dried goat milk, you got carrots dried, sweet potatoes dried, onions dried, and what was the fifth one?
dried.
Yeah, dried.
Are you talking about not the legumes, the beans? No.
Yeah,
Onions,
but you know, that's your list right there: carrots, sweet potatoes, onions, and powdered goat milk. I forget the fifth one. I know the fifth one, but yeah. So I mean, those would be great staples to have in your food bin too.
Since you brought up goat milk, man, I got to tell one quick story before we wrap this up. Right. This company, I'm not going to say any names, but I worked for a sports nutrition company when I got out to California, and they came out with a protein, and the protein was goat whey. So everything you just said, John, about like, you know, the better digestion from goat milk and all that, that was for people that were bovine intolerant. You know, anybody that was intolerant to cow's milk switched to goat milk. And I mean, there would be these little like 14-ounce containers of goat milk protein that were like $50. Well, we came out with goat whey protein, and a 2-pounder was like $29.99. Now, anybody who knows anything about milk, whey is the sweet cream that goes to the top. So pure, like full goat milk, you know, 14 ounces of that being like $50, and then 2 pounds of whey, it just doesn't make any sense. And their whole thing was anybody that's allergic, well, and it's got a better amino acid profile, better bioavailability. Well, sure enough, come to find out, they put garbage in it. It was just all it was amino spiked, just basic whey protein. And I remember just being like, I can't work for these guys anymore. This is crazy. Because it's like, if someone is truly bovine intolerant and they try drinking this goat milk because it's like, hey, this is going to be great. Oh, you're looking at massive. I was like, no, this is nuts. So just make sure that when it comes to buying supplements, buy them from a reputable company, especially one that's been around for a minute too. I mean, that's, you know, like I always, and I'll give them a plug. I've been using Beverly International stuff since like the mid 90s. I mean, that's been around forever. So I definitely.
A lot of the old timers from the gym still use that stuff. You know, they've been using that since the 70s. I think Beverly started in the 70s, if I believe right.
68 by a guy named Jim Heflin. Yep.
Yeah, because I was buying that originally, was Beverly when I was in the 70s when I started lifting.
Well, and because you brought it up, one thing, if you are going to buy another supplement that might behoove you, and John, disagree with me if you do, but Beverly makes a fantastic desiccated Argentinian beef liver supplement.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, man, with that, when it comes to protein, hema iron, B vitamins, everything. I mean, it's so nutrient rich.
Absolutely right. Is the beef liver. You know what else is Manuka honey.
Oh, yeah.
You need one little spoonful, and Manuka honey is loaded with like anti-microbial properties. Really good for heat. You can put it on wounds and everything.
I was going to say, so do you remember my friend Alexis that was at the boxing match? David and Alexis? I always asked Alexis, I was like, I got this cut. What do I do? And she's like, put Manuka honey on it.
Yeah.
You're absolutely
my sister,
right.
Not my sister, my cousin. She had a bed sore from being laid up for a long time. And the thing wouldn't heal, and she put Manuka honey on it, and it healed.
It's crazy, I mean, right?
Yeah. So it's probably something really good to have in your arsenal if you're gonna be doing some prepping stuff.
Yep. Well, hey, this is I feel good about this. You know, we'll get in. I think John and I are going to get into meal prep for actual fitness stuff later. But you know, we were just talking today about what to discuss with our podcast here at F3, and John was like saying, you know, we should talk about like actually how you meal prep for needing to meal prep for the, you know, for the big one, for the event. So I think this is I definitely learned a lot here too. The one that I like, John, that you said is because I've got all right, full disclosure, I might have gangstered a few extras of them just to keep them out at the house. But you know those little packets of lime and lemon you're talking about?
Yeah.
I'll go into like a gas station, it'll have them there. I'll grab like an extra 5,
Yep.
kind of like I'm hoarding them. But I
Yeah.
kept it out there just because, like, like Karina likes soda water. So we like Maggie thinks soda water's pop, right? So I'll do that and I'll sprinkle some of those crystals in there, and she loves it, But no,
Yeah.
you're right. For vitamin C, that's a pretty good call right there. I never would have thought that.
Yeah.
Man, I'm gonna have to tell my practical prepper friends about that. They'll be like, "Well, hey, that's new. So that's a good one." But well, hey, I'd like to thank our sponsor of tonight's event, which is SD Fearless Fitness. John, do you know anything about that?
The Fearless Fitness. Yeah, a little bit. You can buy workouts on there. You can get meal plans, all kinds of stuff. So if you're ever interested, go to thefearlessfitness.com, THE fearlessfitness.com.
And I have, and I dig it, and I'm still doing gorilla walks. So those are the most. I was doing them at the gym the other day. For those of you that don't know, I'm not going to tell you what it is. Just go buy it from John's website. But I will tell you, I was walking doing those gorilla walks, and I saw people looking at me. But dude, I do my shoulders, and I just put those above my head and start walking, and it is, oh man, it crushes them.
Yeah. And then you throw in a couple presses in there when you come to a stop and walk again. It's brutal, man.
I do that to the class I teach on Mondays. We'll start walking, and I'll just stop and be like, all right, give me 2 quick pumps. Like, I just hear them crying.
Yeah.
Horrible. Yep. Well, John, do you want to take us out?
Yeah, man. Hey, everybody. Thanks for stopping in. And just remember to stay faithful, stay fit, and stay free. We'll see you next time on the F3 podcast.